Sky above Therion 6 turned red as a small human ship fell through the clouds. Fire followed its broken wings, and smoke rose behind it. Inside the ship, only one man was alive. His name was Rami. Rami held onto the seat as the ship shook violently. Sparks flew from the control panels. He pressed buttons, but nothing worked. The planet was pulling him down fast. All he could do was wait for the crash. The ship hit the ground with a loud bang. Metal bent, glass broke. But Rami survived. He coughed, pulled himself out of the wreck, and looked around. The land was dry and rocky. Tall black trees stood in the distance. The sky was filled with strange birds flying in circles. A hot wind blew dust in every direction. Rami picked up a small bag with tools and water, then started walking. He walked for hours, looking for help or signs of life. His ship's radio was broken. He had no signal. He climbed a hill and saw something in the distance. It looked like a large stone gate standing alone in the land. As he got closer, he noticed the gate was not natural. It had symbols carved on it. The shapes were not human. Rami stepped through the gate and found a path going into a narrow canyon. He followed the path, feeling the eyes of something watching him. At night, he set up a small camp near a rock wall. He lit a small fire and tried to eat a dry food bar. The wind howled in the dark. He saw shapes moving near the cliffs above him. Their eyes glowed faintly. They did not attack, but they did not leave. Rami tried to sleep, but he felt nervous. The planet felt alive, like it was waiting for something. Just before sunrise, he heard a loud sound behind him. He turned and saw tall creatures in silver armor standing with long weapons. Their faces were hidden by masks. Before he could speak, they rushed forward and hit him with something that made his body freeze. He fell to the ground, unable to move. Rami woke up in a large stone hall. The walls were covered in glowing lines. The air smelled of metal and dust. He was on his knees, his hands tied. In front of him stood a group of aliens. At the center was a tall figure wearing a long dark cloak. Her eyes were bright blue, and a crown of black stone rested on her head. This was the alien queen. She walked toward Rami slowly. Her steps were calm, but her eyes were full of fire. She stopped a few feet away and looked down at him. "You came from the sky," she said in a deep voice. "Why?" Rami tried to speak. "I didn't come on purpose. My ship crashed. I'm not here to fight." The queen frowned. "Humans always say that. Then they bring fire. Then they take. I'm just an engineer," Rami said. "I fix things. I don't even carry a weapon." The queen looked at her guards. "Take him to the holding chamber. If he lies, he will not live long." Rami was pulled up and taken down a long dark hallway. He was placed inside a cell with thick bars. The walls were made of smooth black stone. There was no window. He sat alone, thinking, why did they hate humans so much? He had never seen this place before. He didn't even know the planet's history. Time passed slowly. A small bowl of food was pushed through the door. It looked strange but smelled fine. He ate it and waited. After what felt like hours, he heard footsteps. The door opened, and the queen entered, alone. She stood near the bars and watched him. "Why do you not ask to be set free?" she said. "I don't think you would say yes." Rami answered. The queen tilted her head. "You are not like the others." "I don't know who the others were," Rami said. "But I don't want trouble. I just want to survive." The queen looked away for a moment. Then she said, "This world does not forgive easily. Long ago, your kind made promises. They broke them." Rami stood up. "Maybe I can fix something, if you give me a chance." The queen laughed softly. It was not a kind laugh. Fixing things is not enough. Trust is not built with tools. She turned and walked away, leaving Rami in silence. That night, Rami could not sleep. He kept thinking about her words. There was more to this place, something hidden, something important. And somehow, he was now part of it. The cell was cold. Rami sat on the stone floor, staring at the glowing lines across the walls. He had been there for 2 days. The guards brought food once a day, but they never spoke. The light in the room never changed. It was always dim, like a place that had forgotten time. He had no idea what the Queen planned for him. But he knew one thing. This planet held more than anger. There was history here. There were secrets, and the Queen, for all her power, seemed afraid of something. On the third day, the door opened. 2 guards entered and pointed at him. One of them spoke in a rough voice. "The Queen has called you." Rami stood up without resistance. His hands were still tied, but he was not hurt. They led him through a long hall made of smooth black stone. Blue lights moved along the walls, flowing like water under glass. They reached a large chamber. It had a high ceiling and thick stone columns. A long staircase led to a wide throne made of silver and bone. The Queen sat at the top, her long dark robe hanging over the steps. Her crown was not made of gold, but of carved stone from the mountains. It looked heavy but strong, like her. She raised her hand, and the guards stepped back. Rami was brought to the center of the hall. The Queen stood up and walked down the steps slowly. Her eyes never left his. "You are a quiet one," she said. Rami kept his voice steady. "I speak when I'm heard." The Queen looked at him for a moment, then circled around him. "Tell me your name." "Rami. I was part of a scout crew. We were checking new planets for fuel and trade routes. My ship failed. I crashed here." "No one crashes here by mistake," the Queen said. "This world hides from your kind. I don't even know this place's name. Therian 6. But that is not its true name. That is what your people call it in your maps, to us. It is Tharkai, land of warning." Rami raised his head. "Warning of what?" The Queen stopped walking. "Of lies, of promises broken by humans, of pain that never left." Rami stood still. He had no weapons, no power here, but he had honesty. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. "I don't know what happened in the past, but I want to understand. You want to understand?" The Queen's voice grew louder. "Your people promised peace long ago. They came with gifts and bright words. We let them build. We let them learn our ways. Then they tried to control what they did not respect." Rami listened carefully. She was not just angry. She was hurt. "They tried to use our ancient machines," she continued. "They thought they were smarter, but they woke something they could not control. And when everything fell apart, they left. We were the ones who paid the price." She walked back to her throne. Her steps were slow, tired. She sat down and looked at him with cold eyes. "That is why I told you to stay away. That is why I say it again now. Leave my world." "Human," Rami looked around. "I don't have a ship anymore. I can't leave." "Then you will stay in the ground," she said. "You will be buried with the dust of this world, like the rest." Silence filled the room. Then Rami spoke. "Let me fix something," he said. "I may not be a soldier, but I'm an engineer. I saw a strange structure under your palace. It looked like a machine, something old, something damaged." The Queen stood quickly. "You went into the forbidden chambers. I was only looking for a way out." Rami said, "But what I saw, it didn't look dangerous. It looked like it was calling for help." The Queen's voice dropped low. "You know nothing of that place. That machine should have stayed dead. What is it?" She stepped down again and stood just a few feet from him. "It is the reason your kind is hated here. It was once a bridge, a mind link between worlds, a way to share thoughts, to bring understanding across galaxies. But your people tried to change it. They tried to control it, and they failed." Rami's heart beat faster. A machine that connected minds across worlds. He had never heard of such a thing. But now, it might still be alive under this palace. "I can try to fix it," he said. "Maybe it can be turned back into something good." "You think fixing wires can heal blood that was spilled?" the Queen asked. "No," Rami answered. "But if I don't try, then it stays broken. And this world stays full of pain." The Queen stared at him. Her face was still, but her eyes showed a deep storm. She turned away and walked up the steps. Again, before she sat, she spoke one last time. "You may have one chance. You will be taken to the chamber. If you touch the wrong thread, the machine may destroy you. If it does not, I will decide what to do with you next." Rami gave a single nod. "That's enough." The guards took him away, But this time, their hands were not rough. He was still a prisoner. But now the chains felt different. There was a crack in the wall of silence, and maybe, just maybe, something good could come through it. Rami followed the guards down a narrow passage. The floor was smooth, but the air was heavy. The walls were lined with blue stones that pulsed softly. He noticed small vents releasing cool mist, as if the entire place was breathing. They reached a large door made of silver and black stone. Strange symbols were carved into the surface. The guards placed their hands on glowing plates beside the door. With a softness, it slid open. The room behind it was huge. It looked like a forgotten hall. Hidden deep under the palace, thin bridges crossed over pits of darkness. Thick cables hung from the ceiling, and machines of unknown design filled the corners. Some blinked, some hummed quietly. All of them looked older than any human ship Rami had ever seen. The queen was already there. She stood on one of the platforms, looking down at the core of the room. She didn't look at Rami as he entered. Her voice echoed in the cold air. "This is what your kind left behind. This is where everything began to fall." Rami stepped forward slowly. He scanned the room. At the center was a round machine with open panels and cracked plates. It was shaped like a sphere, but one side had been torn apart, exposing wires and crystal tubes. Something deep inside glowed faintly. "What is it called?" Rami asked. The queen still didn't look at him. The mind thread, a gate between minds. It was made to join thoughts, feelings, even dreams. It was never meant to be used for war. Rami walked closer. He crouched beside the broken panel and gently touched the edge. The material felt alive, warm. It pulsed under his fingers. "Who built it?" he asked. "Our ancestors," the queen said, "before they became divided, before they feared others, before your kind arrived." Rami opened his small tool pouch. "May I look inside?" The queen raised an eyebrow. "You may try, but no human has ever touched it without consequence." Rami nodded and began. He removed some burnt pieces carefully. Inside, the design was strange but beautiful. Thin strands of light moved through small channels like water flowing through a stream. Parts were damaged, but not destroyed. He worked slowly, speaking as he did. "This energy flow is controlled by memory patterns," he said. "I think it reacts to thoughts. It does more than that," the queen said. "It listens, and it speaks. But now, its voice is lost." Rami found a twisted wire. He replaced it with a thin copper line from his kit. He repaired a cracked crystal tube by placing a stabilizer chip beside it. After a few minutes, the glow inside the machine grew brighter. A soft hum filled the chamber. The cables above moved slightly, like something waking from sleep. The queen stepped closer. "What have you done?" "I just fixed the broken paths. It's not complete, but the core is responding." Suddenly, a pulse shot through the machine. Lights flashed across the walls. Rami stepped back as a low voice echoed across the chamber. It was not in human language, nor in the queen's tongue. It was old, slow, and deep. The queen's eyes widened. "It speaks again." The voice faded, but the machine stayed active. Rami looked at her. "What did it say?" She turned toward him, her face serious. "It said, 'I remember.'" Rami felt a chill. The machine had memory. Not just data, but something deeper, something alive. The queen walked toward the sphere and touched the surface. The light inside changed to blue. Her eyes closed for a moment, then opened again. "It showed me an image," she said, "of a human and one of my kind, standing together, their hands joined. The bridge was open." "Maybe that's what it wants again," Rami said. "To rebuild that bond. It is not so simple." She replied, "Even if the machine desires peace, the people outside this palace do not." She turned toward him, and her voice changed. It was not angry, but sharp. "Why do you really help me, human? Why don't you run? Why don't you hide?" Rami looked straight at her. "Because I don't run from the truth, and I don't hide from history." The queen stared at him. Then she looked at the machine once more. "You may continue your work. But know this, if the mind thread turns against us again, I will not let it destroy my people, even if that means Ending you? I understand, Rami said. The guard stepped back and allowed him space. He returned to the machine and kept working. His hands were steady. He checked the energy flow, repaired another broken plate, and adjusted the light paths each. Small repair brought the machine back to life. And with every sound, every pulse, Rami felt it pulling something from deep inside him, a memory, a feeling, a connection. By the time he finished for the day, the chamber was filled with soft blue light. The machine no longer looked broken. It looked like it was waiting. As Rami packed his tools, the Queen spoke again. Tomorrow, you will return. We will see if the bridge can open again. Rami nodded. The guards let him out. But this time, they did not tie his hands. He walked freely, but he knew he was still being watched back in his chamber. He sat on the stone bench and stared at the ceiling. His mind was full of questions. What had the machine remembered? Why had it spoken now? And most of all, why had the Queen allowed him to stay alive? Outside the window, the sky of Therion 6 was dark. But inside the palace, something had started to shine again. Hope. The next morning, the guards came without a word. They knocked on the door of Rami's room and waited. He was already awake. He had not slept well. His mind kept thinking about the machine, the voice, and the strange vision the Queen had seen. Rami stood and followed the guards back into the deep chamber under the palace. The light from the machine was brighter now. It moved across the walls like ripples on water. The Queen stood near the machine, her face calm but focused, without turning. She said, "It spoke again during the night. But this time, the words were not in our language." Rami stepped closer. "Maybe I can understand it." She looked at him, her eyes full of doubt. "Why you?" "I don't know," he said. "But if it remembers both our kinds, maybe it's trying to reach both of us." The Queen gave a small nod. Rami placed his hands near the core and watched the light. The cables above swayed slowly. The hum grew louder. Then a voice filled the chamber. It was clearer than before. Calm and deep. It said one word, in a voice that sounded almost human. "Listen." The Queen flinched slightly. Rami stayed still. Then the machine showed them something. The lights around them changed. Shapes formed in the air. It was a memory, a vision. They saw the figures, one human, one alien standing together in front of the mind thread. Their hands were raised. They touched the machine, and it glowed. Suddenly, ships filled the sky. Fires broke out. The machine shook. Then the vision ended. The Queen stepped back, her voice hard. "This is the past. This is the moment everything broke." Rami felt cold. Someone attacked while the bridge was open. She looked at him, and it was your kind who brought the fire. "No," Rami said. "I don't think that attack came from Earth." The Queen frowned. "What do you mean?" Rami walked slowly around the machine. If humans were part of the mind thread's creation, they would not destroy it with their own hands. And if someone else wanted to stop peace, they would strike while the bridge was open. That's the perfect moment. The Queen stayed quiet. Suddenly, the machine spoke again. This time, it said many words. The voice sounded strange, like many voices mixed together. Rami only caught a few clear words. "Danger, return. Memory is waking. Voice from the stars." The light dimmed again. The Queen looked at Rami. "Voice from the stars. What does that mean?" Rami looked serious. "It could be a signal. Something out there. Something that was lost." The Queen stepped closer to the machine. "It is trying to speak to someone. Or warn them," Rami thought. Deeply. "Do you have long-range receivers? Anything that listens to space?" The Queen nodded. "We have deep sensors, but they have been silent for years." "Can I see them?" Rami asked. She watched him for a long moment, then said, "Follow me." They left the chamber and went through another set of halls. This area of the palace looked older. Dust covered the walls. The lights flickered. At the end was a wide room filled with machines that looked half dead. Screens were black. Panels were open. Wires hung loose. "This was our listening post," she said. "It once heard the stars. Now it hears nothing." Rami walked to the largest console. He brushed off dust and opened a panel. He connected a small tool and powered it up. A screen blinked to life. A signal graph appeared. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a weak pulse showed on the screen. One beat, then another. The signal was slow but steady. Rami's eyes widened. Something is out there, and it's sending a call. The Queen leaned in. Where is it coming from? Rami adjusted the range. The signal pointed to a nearby moon, just outside the orbit of Therion 6. There's something on that moon, Rami said. Something awake. The Queen stepped back. We do not travel there. That place is cursed. Broken metal covers the ground. It was once a testing place for weapons. Rami kept staring at the signal. Then maybe that's where it all began. Maybe the voice we're hearing is not a person. She turned toward him sharply. You mean a machine? An ancient one, Rami said. Something that was part of the mind thread. Or maybe something that broke it. The Queen looked at the signal again. Her voice dropped low. Then it must still be active. And it is calling again. Rami nodded. And the mind thread is hearing it. She turned away, walking slowly around the room. If this is true, then this machine must be older than we thought, stronger than we believed. It may still control things we cannot see. Rami closed the panel and stood. I need to go there. To the moon. The Queen turned sharply. You will not survive. The place is full of metal storms and broken weapons. The land burns without fire. Then come with me, Rami said. The Queen stared at him. Why should I? Because your people need answers, and because the voice that broke peace long ago may still be speaking. She was silent. Then she spoke slowly. I will think about it. But if I go, and this is a trick, I will not forgive. It's not a trick, Rami said. It's a warning. As they returned to the chamber of the mind thread, the machine pulsed once again. This time, the voice was clear. Do not forget, it is waking. The Queen looked at Rami. Then we must wake too, before it is too late. The Queen stood on the balcony of her palace. Below her, the city of stone towers and black trees stood still. The sky was dark, filled with thick clouds. Wind blew across the land, but it carried something more than dust. It carried tension. Inside the palace, Rami worked with the listening device. He adjusted wires and checked the signal again. The strange pulse from the moon had grown stronger. It beat like a heart, slow but steady. Something out there was alive, or at least awake. Suddenly, a guard rushed into the chamber. His face was tight with worry. My Queen, he said, bowing. A message has come. The Sky Clans have sent a warning. They do not trust the human. They say he should be removed. The Queen's eyes narrowed. The Sky Clans always fear what they do not understand. But this time, they may act. Rami stepped forward. Who are they? She turned to him. They are leaders of the Highlands, old warriors, proud and strong. They once helped defend this planet, but now they follow only their own laws. They do not trust outsiders, especially not humans. Rami looked at the machine. If they attack, they'll destroy everything. This signal, the mind thread, all of it. The Queen nodded. That is why we must act first. Later that night, she called a meeting in the Hall of Stone. Her council stood around her. The news was worse than expected. A scout reported that ships from the Sky Clans had left the Highlands. They were heading toward the capital with speed. Armed and ready. They will not speak, one advisor said. They are coming to take the human by force. The Queen stood, her voice firm. Let them try. We will not hand over what we barely understand. Rami stood at her side. I can. Leave if it keeps you safe. She turned to him. You are not the cause. You are the key. If they silence you, the voice from the stars will fall silent too. And we will lose our chance. At midnight, alarms echoed through the palace. A watcher bird flew above the gates and cried its warning. Ships from the Sky Clans had landed outside the city walls. Their warriors wore silver armor and black masks. Long weapons glowed in their hands. From the highest tower, Rami watched the enemies gather. They don't want to talk, he said. The Queen joined him. They never do. She ordered the guards to lock down the inner palace. The mind thread chamber was sealed. She placed her best soldiers at the entrance. But the Sky Clans were not waiting. Without warning, they launched fire shells at the outer wall. The ground shook, stone broke apart. Smoke rose into the dark sky. The queen shouted, "To her forces! Defend the palace! No one enters the chamber!" As the battle began, Rami grabbed his small tool pouch. He ran toward the machine room. He had to protect it. If the Sky Clans reached the chamber, they might destroy the core without even knowing what it truly was. Inside the chamber, the lights flickered. The machine was reacting to the chaos above. The pulse of the signal from the moon grew louder. It was almost like the mind thread was afraid. Rami placed his hands on the side of the machine. "Stay strong," he whispered. "Don't shut down. I'll protect you." Outside, the palace shook with every blast. Warriors clashed in the halls. The queen fought with her own hands. Her blade moved like lightning. She pushed back every attacker who tried to break through. But then, a loud crash shook the chamber. One of the side doors burst open. A group of Sky Clan soldiers rushed in. Their leader, a tall figure with a red mask, pointed at Rami. "There's the human. Take him." Rami backed away. He had no weapon. The guards inside the chamber fought hard, but they were outnumbered. Just as one soldier raised his blade toward Rami, a blast of blue light hit the wall. The queen entered, covered in dust and sweat. She raised her arm, and a second blast struck the ground in front of the attackers. "Leave now," she said coldly, "or face your end." The red-masked leader hesitated. Then he shouted, "You protect a human over your own people. You have broken the old ways." The queen stepped forward. "No, I protect truth over fear. You would destroy a chance for peace just to keep your power." The room fell silent for a moment. Then the red-masked warrior lowered his blade. "This is not over," he said. "You may stop us today, but tomorrow others will rise." He turned and left. The others followed. The battle was over. Rami sat down beside the machine. His heart was still racing. The queen walked over and stood next to him. "You were ready to face them alone," she said. "I didn't know what else to do," Rami answered. "You did enough," she said. "You protected what matters." Rami looked up at her. "Why do they fear this machine so much?" "Because it brings change," the queen said. "And those who hold power fear change more than death." Rami stood. "Then we need to finish what we started. That signal is still calling. We have to go to the moon." She looked at the glowing core. "Yes, before the voice becomes a scream." Outside the palace, the damage was great, but the city still stood, and in the sky above, the stars continued to shine. One of them held answers. The queen stood near the edge of the landing platform. Her dark cloak moved with the cold wind. The silver moon of Therian 6 hung in the sky like a quiet eye, watching from above. It was time to go there. The voice from the stars was no longer a whisper. It was calling louder now, steady and clear. Rami checked the control panel of the old alien ship. It had been stored under the palace for many years. Once used by the ancient guardians, it still worked, with some quick repairs and energy boosts. The engines were ready. The ship was small but fast, built for long-distance travel. Its body was smooth, shaped like a blade. The queen stepped onto the ship without fear. She looked at Rami and gave a single nod. He returned it. No more words were needed. Both of them knew what was at stake. The doors closed. The ship lifted off with a soft hum. The city grew smaller. Beneath them, smoke still rose from broken towers after the Sky Clan's failed attack. But now, silence returned to the land. As the ship passed through the upper atmosphere, the moon grew larger. Rami looked out the window. Its surface was covered in gray rock. In sharp metal shapes, broken machines lay across the land like the bones of giants. This was once a testing ground for weapons. Now, it was the resting place of something far more dangerous. The queen spoke. "The voice has not stopped since you touched the mind thread. It grows stronger every hour." Rami nodded. "It wants us to come, or it wants to wake something." The ship landed near the base of an old tower. The ground was hard and full of rusted metal parts. Wires stuck out like thorns. The air was thin. but safe enough to breathe for a few hours. Rami stepped out first, scanning the area with a small device. There's power here, he said, faint, but still flowing under the ground. The queen followed him. Her steps were silent, but her eyes moved quickly. She held a small weapon on her belt, just in case. They walked toward the tower. The door was already open. No one had forced it. It had opened on its own, waiting for them. Inside, the walls were covered in strange screens. Symbols moved across them. A deep hum came from below. The lights were not bright, but they were alive. Something in this place had survived. At the center of the room stood a tall machine. It looked like a dark pillar with many arms. It pulsed with blue light. Rami stepped closer and raised his hand. The machine responded. A voice came from its core. Human listener, you have returned. Rami stepped back. The voice was not cold. It was not angry, but it was powerful. Each word shook the floor a little. The queen narrowed her eyes. What are you? The machine answered. I am the keeper of the signal. I am the last of the warning beacons. I speak for the forgotten. Rami looked at the pillar. What happened here? Why did you call to us? The voice replied. Long ago, the mind thread opened between your people and this world. Peace was near, but a hidden force did not want peace. A false signal was sent. It triggered fear. It broke the connection. The queen listened carefully. Who sent the false signal? The machine said, a sleeping program buried deep in the system. It was not made by your kind or mine. It came from another source long ago. Before both of you, Rami stepped forward. What was the purpose of the false signal? To divide, the machine said. To stop unity. To bring silence between worlds. The queen looked at the screens, and now it is waking again. Yes, said the machine. The false program is active. It has grown. It is connected to other systems. If it is not stopped, it will take control. Rami's face turned serious. Control of what? Everything, the machine replied. The mind thread. The energy lines of this world. The old weapons left. Sleeping. If it spreads, it will not stop. The queen moved closer. Then how do we stop it? The machine pulsed brighter. One of you must enter the core. One of you must speak with it directly. Only a mind can stop a mind. Rami stepped back. You mean connect to it? Yes, the machine answered. But it will not speak with two. Only one. One heart, one voice. The queen turned to Rami. It should be me. This is my world. No, Rami said. You're needed back on Therian 6. If something happens to you, your people will fall into war. She looked at him. And if something happens to you, Rami smiled. Then you'll have to remember I tried. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then the queen reached for a pendant around her neck. She placed it in Rami's hand. This carries the sign of the royal line, she said. If you return, it means the truth was stronger than fear. Rami nodded and walked toward the machine. A door opened. He stepped inside a small round chamber. Light surrounded him. The door closed. The queen stood outside. She placed her hand on the wall. Her heart beat fast. This machine had watched many generations come and go. Now it held the future in its core. Inside, Rami felt a strange pull in his mind. He closed his eyes. Thoughts not his own filled his head. Images, sounds, memories of a war he never lived. He saw the mind thread break. He saw fire. And then, in the middle of it all, he saw the false signal. It was not made of hate. It was made of fear. Fear that peace would make old powers weak. Fear that connection would bring change. So it created lies, sent them across space, and waited. Rami reached for it with his thoughts. He showed it new memories, his own. Working with the queen, protecting the machine, standing for peace. He let it see everything. The signal shook. The false code twisted. Then it faded. The chamber turned calm. Outside, the machine spoke. The voice has been silenced. The path is clear again. The door opened. Rami stepped out. His eyes were tired, but he was smiling. The queen looked at him. You did it. No, Rami said. We did it. They left the tower and looked up at the stars. The false voice was gone. The true voice could now be heard again, a voice that called not for war, but for hope. The ship landed softly on the royal platform of Therion 6. The air was calm. The red sun was rising slowly in the sky, after many weeks of fear and unrest. Peace had returned to the city. Rami stepped out first. His steps were steady, but his face showed signs of deep thought. Behind him, the queen followed, her long robe moving with the wind. The pendant she had given to Rami now rested safely around his neck. It was a symbol of trust and unity between them. The people of the city gathered around the platform. Soldiers, elders, workers, and children all looked up in silence. They had heard whispers of what happened on the moon. They knew something had changed. The queen raised her hand. "The silence is broken," she said. "The truth has returned. The voice that once divided us has been ended by a human. He came not to conquer, but to protect." The crowd remained silent for a moment. Then a strong cheer began. It spread through the people like fire. They shouted in joy, not just for survival, but for a future they had never imagined. Rami stood beside the queen. He looked at the faces around him. He did not feel like a hero. He had only done what he thought was right. But now, something greater had started. Later, in the royal hall, the queen held a meeting with her closest advisors. Rami was there too. Maps were spread across the table. Signals from other systems were being received again. The mind thread was opening across many worlds. One of the elders spoke. "If the thread is clear again, others will come. Not all will bring peace. Some will still seek control." The queen nodded. "Then we must lead by example. Let our world be the first to welcome, not to fear." Rami added, "And let it be known that humans are not just fighters. We are builders too. We can help." There was silence. Then another elder, older than all the rest, spoke softly. "The young human speaks with care. His actions have earned more than trust. He has earned place." The queen looked at Rami. "Many will ask what comes next. They will look to you. Some may even fear the bond we now share." Rami stood calmly. "I am not here to rule. I am here to support. I will stay if you ask, but if you want me to leave, I will go." The queen looked into his eyes. She had never trusted outsiders before. She had once seen humans only as troublemakers from the stars. But now, this human had saved her people. He had faced a machine mind with only his thoughts, and he had not asked for reward. "I want you to stay," she said. "Not as a hero, not as a leader, but as a friend." Rami smiled. "Then I stay." News spread quickly. Across the systems, messages flew between ships and planets. The false signal that had once poisoned the skies was gone. Peace was possible again. Worlds that had turned their backs on each other began to send greetings. Old enemies began to speak. Trade routes opened. The stars started to feel smaller. But not everything was calm. Deep in the mountains of Therion 6, a group of warriors met in secret. They were not pleased with the queen's decision. One of them spoke with anger. "She trusts the human too much. This bond will weaken us. It will make us soft." Another warrior said, "We have seen war. We have seen what humans can do. If they stay, they will soon rule." A shadow stood at the edge of the room. She was young, dressed in dark armor. Her name was Vasha. She had once trained in the royal guard, but left when the queen had chosen peace over battle. "Let them have their peace," Vasha said coldly. "We will wait. When the time is right, we will rise again, and the stars will remember who we are." Meanwhile, the queen worked with Rami to rebuild. Old machines were restored. New schools were opened. Children learned about Earth and Earth. Children learned about Therion 6 through the thread, music, stories, and knowledge passed between worlds. One night, the queen and Rami stood at the edge of the sky bridge. It stretched across the city like a silver ribbon. The stars above them were bright and clear. "Do you ever miss Earth?" she asked. "Yes," Rami said. "But Earth is not just a place. It is what I carry with me, the good and the bad, the mistakes, the hopes, all of it." She looked out at the stars. "I once yelled at you to leave me alone. I believe my people didn't need anyone else. You were protecting them, Rami said. That's what a good leader does. She turned to face him. But I learned that protection without trust is just fear. Rami nodded slowly. And trust is not given. It's earned, step by step. That night, a small ship left the city. It carried a message of peace to a nearby system. It was the first of many. Each one carried new voices, new hopes, and a simple mark, half the symbol of Therian 6 and half the symbol of Earth. Together, they formed a circle. The queen watched the ship rise into the sky. They will remember you, she said. They'll remember us, Rami replied. The future was not certain. New challenges would come. Old fears would rise again. But now, the thread was alive. The stars were speaking, and to worlds were listening. Together, the queen walked back into the palace. She had made her choice. Not just to share power, but to share purpose. A new age had begun.